What's up everybody, I'm HoopsandHipHop. So when it comes to Pokemon, the development of Pokemon designs themselves is one of the most fascinating things out there, because just when you think you know everything there is to know about a certain Pokemon's design or the development of a certain generation, something will come out of the woodworks in the form of a leak that completely changes everything we know about the history and development of Pokemon itself. And one huge part of this extremely interesting development process are the Pokemon themselves. Pokemon designs tend to go through a lot of trial and error before they reach their final design, and every so often we'll get a Pokemon that makes the final games but was actually originally intended to be something completely different when the idea for it was first conceived. So in today's video, we are going to be highlighting 10 Pokemon who used to be a completely different Pokemon. From their beta designs to the final product, all of these Pokemon completely changed everything that they were about during the process of their development, whether that be in the form of their appearance completely changing, their role within their generation completely changing, originally being a part of a different evolution family than what they ended up with, or even originally being a part of a completely different generation than the one that they debuted in. All of these are extremely fascinating to say the least, so without any further ado, why don't we go ahead and get started. The first one we're going to talk about is a rather iconic one, and that would be Kangaskhan, originally being the evolution to Marowak. This one has been around for years in the form of a theory, but just earlier this year it was actually definitively confirmed to be true when the website Helix Chamber uncovered and unveiled beta elements for Pokemon Red and Green, which included a scrapped Marowak evolution which heavily resembles the appearance of Kangaskhan. So at one point, Kangaskhan was intended to be a part of the Cubone family and an evolution to Marowak instead of its own standalone Pokemon, and Cubone was intended to have an actual mother, explaining where it got the skull that it wears on its head. So in a way, this one kills two birds with one stone, and it's just so fascinating to know that something that was once nothing more than fan theory has actually been confirmed to be true. This next one is one that isn't quite definitively confirmed, but is heavily implied and fairly easy to see that it is the case, and that is the fact that Raikou, or at least the design it received in the final game, was actually intended to be more of a common, non-legendary Pokemon. In the demo for Pokemon Gold and Silver that was leaked last year, we got to see the early designs of so many Johto Pokemon, including the early looks for the legendary beasts. Needless to say, Raikou looks completely different to the way it does in the final game. However, there is a Pokemon within this beta that was scrapped altogether that actually bears a striking resemblance to Raikou's final design, and that comes in the form of Kotora and Raitora. The visual similarities from these Pokemon to the final design of Raikou can be seen almost immediately, because not only are they cat Pokemon, not only are they tiger-like Pokemon, not only do they have the yellow and black stripes, which are the defining feature of Raikou itself, but they even share a similar name, both using the Rai prefix. So given all of these unignorable similarities, the fact that these Pokemon were scrapped from the games altogether, and the fact that Raikou looks completely different to the way it does in its final design, makes it fairly obvious that Raikou actually gets its design from what was at one point a common non-legendary Pokemon, and these Pokemon gave up their status as being their own unique Pokemon in order for Raikou to have the design that it does today. Next up is one that hasn't been outright confirmed, but as far as I'm concerned, it's pretty obvious, and that's the fact that Whiscash was at one point most likely originally an evolution for Qwilfish. The reason I say this is because in the Gold and Silver beta demo leak, another Pokemon that was revealed to have been cut from the game was an evolution to Qwilfish, and if you take the appearance of this Qwilfish evolution and compare it to the appearance of Whiscash, you can immediately see some extreme similarities. They are both blue in color, they both have the same body shape, they both have the same distinctive big lips, and probably most definitively, they both have a yellow symbol on their forehead, with Qwilfish's evolution having a lightning bolt symbol, and Whiscash having a similar looking W-like symbol as well. All in all, there are just way too many similarities here for this to just be one big coincidence, and given the fact that Whiscash also debuted in Generation 3, just one generation after this Pokemon was supposed to debut, it's most likely the case that once it was scrapped as a Qwilfish evolution, its design was kept around and ultimately reworked into the Pokemon that we now know today as Whiscash. Another Hoenn Pokemon that was originally completely different that also has ties to the Gold and Silver Beta is Sharpedo, because originally Sharpedo was most likely going to be a Johto Pokemon that was in a completely different evolutionary family than the one it ended up in. That's because, as a part of the Gold and Silver Beta demo leak, this scrapped Pokemon was revealed to us, which obviously bears a marked similarity to Sharpedo. These two Pokemon are so similar, in fact, that it's basically guaranteed that they are one and the same, meaning that not only was Sharpedo originally a Johto Pokemon, as I said, but it was also the middle evolution in a 3-stage family, as opposed to the final evolution of a 2-stage family, and its evolutionary counterparts are also completely different than what it ended up with in the final with Carvanha. Similar to the point about Whiscash, it's absolutely fascinating to see how Pokemon designs are often remade and reworked into something completely different than what was their original intention, and it's also completely crazy to think that at one point, Sharpedo was a Johto Pokemon. Moving on, we are now going to be talking about Porygon 2, and even though this is yet another example that comes from the Gold and Silver Beta demo, it's a little bit of a different situation compared to the ones that we've just discussed. And that is because while Porygon 2 was always intended as Porygon 2 and it was always intended to debut in Generation 2, its design on the other hand was that of a completely different Pokemon compared to what we got in the final game. This one is extremely noteworthy just because of how completely different these two designs are from beta to final, and in fact, the original design for Porygon 2 looks more so like the mascot of a popular donut shop in Japan called Mr. Donut than it does the final Porygon 2 or any other member of the Porygon family, which just epitomizes how strange this entire situation truly is. Moving away from the Gold and Silver leak though, this next Pokemon actually comes from Generation 5, and that would be the Hydreigon family. During the time that Pokemon Black and White were being released, Ken Sugimori spoke in an interview with Nintendo Dream Magazine on the development of the game and various Pokemon as well, and he actually went into detail on Hydreigon specifically and talked about how originally this Pokemon was focused around the idea and the theme of tanks. These Pokemon, according to Sugimori, were originally supposed to be tank dragons, meaning they likely would have also been Steel Dragon instead of Dark Dragon, and obviously would have had a completely different appearance. This original inspiration can also be seen in the final design as well, because the tread pattern that can be seen on these Pokemon's chests is actually a remnant from when they were originally going to be based on tanks. Needless to say, the theme of this Pokemon and what it's all about was changed around completely, and it would have been interesting to see what it would have been like if the original idea for this Pokemon would have made it into the final game. This next one is another speculative pick, but it's a very convincing one at that, and that is the idea that Shaymin and Virizion were once a concept for a starter Pokemon that would have debuted in the Kalos region before they were split apart and made into legendaries. The idea for this one stems from the fact that Shaymin, its Skyform, and Virizion all look very similar, almost as if they could evolve into one another as a starter Pokemon family or another Pokemon family of some kind. That doesn't really need much explanation, as the similarities between these two Pokemon are evident as soon as you compare them side by side. What you might be wondering, however, is why these Pokemon would be considered as possible starter Pokemon, more specifically from the Kalos region. Well, if we take a look at Kalos, it's common knowledge that Kalos is based on the country of France, and it just so happens that Virizion also has a French inspiration in being based on one of the Three Musketeers. Where Shaymin comes into the mix is the fact that it's literally a hedgehog, and the European hedgehog, where France is located, is known to be a favorite in gardens, which is obviously the theme of Shaymin itself. And it just so happens that the official grass starter for the Kalos region, Chespin, is also based on a hedgehog as well. So all things considered, I am pretty convinced that Shaymin and Virizion were once originally a concept for a grass starter Pokemon, and even though it was cut, its French and overall European inspiration could have been what ultimately inspired Game Freak to look that way for the next Pokemon region in what would become Kalos, or vice versa. So overall, pretty compelling and pretty interesting to say the least. Next up, we're going to go back to the red and green beta and talk about Blastoise, because originally, Blastoise was not a starter Pokemon, and it wasn't even an evolution to Wartortle, because originally it was its own separate Pokemon that was unrelated to the Squirtle family. Originally, Wartortle had a completely different evolution that very much looked like Wartortle as well, and Blastoise, even though it existed at this time, was kind of off to the side on its own, and as I said, completely unrelated to the Squirtle and Wartortle family. There's also another cut Pokemon from the red and green beta that is speculated to be Blastoise's original pre-evolution before it was a part of the Squirtle family, but obviously, as we all know, the original evolution for Wartortle was cut, the possible pre-evolution for Blastoise was cut as well, and Blastoise was ultimately moved into place as the final evolution to Squirtle and given its new role as a starter Pokemon. Also from the red and green beta is a concept for a Pokemon that would actually ultimately become Duraludon, who was just barely revealed for Pokemon Sword and Shield. Within the red and green beta is a Pokemon known as Omega, which by the look of it can very easily be seen to be based on Mechagodzilla. The other interesting thing about this Pokemon is that it was actually a part of the original pitch for Pokemon back in 1990 before the games officially started development, meaning that the concept and idea of this Pokemon is almost 30 years old. Fast forward 30 years, however, and now we have Duraludon, a Steel Dragon Pokemon that, thanks to its association with Tyranitar, is very clearly, at least in part, based on Mechagodzilla, just like Omega was 29 years ago. These Pokemon might be completely different in what they were trying to go for, which is kind of the point of this video anyway, but the fact that they share this very distinctive and unique inspiration connects them together, and it's amazing to see that a design that is almost 30 years old, that was a part of the original pitch for the franchise, has finally seen the light of day in the form of Duraludon. And last but certainly not least is one of the most iconic Pokemon of all time, Jigglypuff. Now, Jigglypuff serves a very important role within the franchise as being one of the most recognizable Pokemon of all time, but originally it was going to be insanely different to the way it ended up. That's because Jigglypuff, being categorized as the balloon Pokemon, originally had a design that was literally just a balloon, and it was known as Barunda. According to the aforementioned red and green beta, as well as the recently released Satoshi Tajiri manga, which details Tajiri's life and his creation of the Pokemon franchise, at some point in development it was decided that there was going to be a balloon Pokemon in these games of some kind. But instead of just one concept for this balloon Pokemon, multiple different ideas of what could be a balloon Pokemon were drawn up for this idea, and later on, there was actually a poll amongst Game Freak staff that was designed for staff members to pick their favorite Pokemon in order to determine which Pokemon would make the final game. And as you might have guessed, the design that ended up winning out in this poll for the balloon Pokemon ended up being Jigglypuff's design as opposed to the more straightforward Barunda design. That is not where the story ends, however, because based on Barunda's appearance and the fact that this kind of thing has happened to other Pokemon designs as well, Barunda could have possibly been reworked or ultimately been the thing that inspired the Generation 4 balloon Pokemon, Drifloon. So not only could Jigglypuff have been a completely different Pokemon, but its origins could have been what inspired and ultimately determined the existence of Drifloon as well, making the decision to go with the Jigglypuff design for the first balloon Pokemon an extremely important one, to say the least. And there we have it, everybody. Those were 10 Pokemon who used to be a completely different Pokemon. If you guys enjoyed the video though, be sure to give it a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments below about what you think of these Pokemon origins and maybe which one of these Pokemon you would have liked to have seen come out in its beta form. If you are new to the channel as well, be sure to subscribe for more Pokemon content each and every week, and as you might have already heard, I am going to be making a special announcement here on the channel this Saturday the 28th at 12 PM Eastern, 9 AM Pacific, that is going to detail a brand new project that is coming to the channel. This is going to be the real deal, and I cannot stress that enough, so I highly recommend you mark your calendars and be here when the announcement drops because you are not going to want to miss it. With all that being said though, I'll be back with another video on Thursday, so hit your notification bell for that as well, and until the next one, as always, I love you guys, and I will smell you guys later.